the first thing you need to know about Scratch is how to get to it. And it used to be a desktop application. It actually will be a desktop application again. But one of the really nice things about Scratch now you can use it online.
Okay. Your audio just dropped out for like a couple seconds.
It's because when you type now, Google apparently mutes you. So if you go to scratch.mit.edu, it'll take you to Scratch. So you don't need to download and install Scratch on your computer anymore. You can just go to the website. This is Scratch 2.0. And I'm logged in here. The reason I'm logged in is so that I can save my projects to the cloud, right? So that I can save it to the site. If I click on my stuff, it goes to all the various projects that I've played with in order to understand how to use Scratch. And I'll give you an example of what you can do with Scratch. Here is a project that I built that allows you to play a game. And if any of you are familiar with the game called Osmos that's available on Android, I really love the physics of it. And the way that Osmos works is that you're a cell and you push yourself into other cells in order to gain their content so that you become bigger. And you stay away from cells that are larger than you that could do the same to you, right? So anyway, this is the game that I built, and I set it up so that when I click on my mouse, it pushes it towards these other figures, and when I hit these other figures, it makes them smaller and me larger. Okay, very simple. Not the complexity of Osmos, and I'm missing a whole bunch of things in order to make it a really valid game, but this just took me a few minutes to put together. So one of the beautiful things about Scratch is that once somebody publishes a game, as I have here, or a project, you can leave a comment on it, you can take it and build upon it if you want to. But maybe most importantly is that you can see inside it. So if I click on See Inside, it shows what I did in order to build the game. And this is the essence of Scratch. So what you have is you have these sprites. And a sprite is essentially a character in the game. This is my hero that I control, and these are these enemy characters. You can rename them. I just left them as Sprite 1, Sprite 2, Sprite 3. And what happens when I click on one of these sprites is over here it has the script. And the script says when you click on the green flag, which is like saying start, set the size of the sprite to 100%, because after this the size may change. In other words, when I move this character into the other characters, I want it to increase the size, but I don't want the increased size to be retained when I start the game over, right?
Right.
So then we have a loop, a forever loop. And what this says is anything in this area here, do again and again and again and again and again. So the first instruction we have is for it to move 1 steps. And that means move at the speed of 1. So move rather slowly. And if you run into an edge, bounce. So it's saying forever, keep moving slowly. And if you run into an edge, bounce. If the mouse is down, in other words, if I click the mouse, then point my sprite towards the mouse pointer and move 3 steps, which is 2 times faster than 1 steps, right? Not 2 times faster, but 2 steps faster than 1 step. So increase the speed of that you're already moving and point it towards the mouse pointer. Also, if you touch the color of one of the enemies, then change the size by 10 and change the color effect by 5. And these are positive numbers. So I could say move -1 steps, or I could say change size by -10. In other words, decrease the size. Right? And then I say wait 1 second. And you can see that happen when I hit play. When I hit one of these, you saw how it sort of stopped. Maybe you can't, depending on the video. But my character stops for a second while that's happening, sort of like a, you might imagine in video games. So, and that's different than the character of the sprite, the enemy sprite. That says when the green flag is clicked, set size to 100%, set energy to 100. This energy is a variable that I created that essentially keeps track of whether or not the sprites have any life left, right? So these particular commands are specific to this game, but you can see that there is a set of commands related to motion. There's a set of commands related to the way that the sprite looks, including change of color, as we did. There are commands related to sound, so I can record sound or import music or import sound effects. So I could make it so that when my sprite hits one of the other sprites, it could play a little vacuuming sound or a little hissing sound or something in order to make that more interesting. Or in some other situation, maybe if I had a plane and it was hitting another plane, it could make a sound effect while it's shooting, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is a pen set of commands. In other words, if I wanted to have a line drawn behind my sprite, I could do that. This is data. This is where I made my energy variable. Here's events. This is where I have this block that says when the green flag is clicked, do the following. I can also make events where space key or other kinds of keys are pressed, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. When a sprite is clicked, I can change it. I can change the backdrop. This just happens to be a black backdrop, but I could have this be space or something. And then at the end of this round, I could have it sort of like wormhole into another. I could change this background to make it look as though it's going to another dimension or something. Here are controls. Here's where I have my forever loop and my repeat 10 loop and if-then loop, right? So I can say if this particular sprite is touching another sprite, then change size by -10, change energy by -30. That's different than the forever loop, which says always do the following. Here's where I have my senses, where if I want to create an if-then loop, I can pull these in order to create a condition in which something is true. Here's operators where I can say if variable 1 and variable 2 equal something else, or if variable 1 is less than variable 2, or if this is true and this is true, then do the following, right? Mm-hmm. So those are the various blocks, and Scratch is about programming. It's about building a program out of these blocks, almost like Legos, and it's a really incredible phenomenon. There's also the ability to add costumes so that I could have it, like let's say that I was making Pac-Man. I could create a costume for a ghost that was pink for Pinky, and I could create a costume for that ghost in which it's blue and white, right? So like when Pac-Man eats the pill, the power pill,
yep.
Change the costume on the ghost to be blue and white, and also make it vulnerable if Pac-Man touches the ghost, right?
Right.
And there's sounds. You won't be able to hear this, but that's a meow sound. Anyway, Scratch is typically sold as a programming platform for kids, but I think that's more because anybody can begin using Scratch. It's a fairly powerful tool, as you can see by, if you go into Scratch itself and you look at some of the projects that are made, they tend to be made by kids, so a lot of them are not especially fully developed. But there are some games that are really very well developed and make great use of the platform. So if you've ever tried programming and sort of walked away from it because you felt like it was too hard, or maybe you're not a verbal person but rather a visual person, I would highly recommend that you look at Scratch. It's completely free, and I think it has been a lot of fun to play with.
Cool. Yeah, looks really cool. Oh, it was like natural fade-in.
Yeah, well, that's the way we play, man.
That's the way we... all right, well, that is, I guess, a initial lesson on Scratch. I'm sure we'll talk more about it at some point. And you're doing classes on?
Yeah, this week at Princeton Public Library, we're going to do our second class for middle schoolers on Scratch. And we spent an hour and a half sort of demonstrating in far more detail what you can do with Scratch in that class. But basically went over the same things and introduced some fantastic kids to a great programming platform.